All right, picking back up. So, as you can see, once again, we have James talking about looking in the mirror, also being looking at the law. And looking at the mirror shows you what kind of man you are and what your nature should be. And if you forget that face, which is what we've all done, right? Uh, then it's just like being a hearer of the word, but not a doer. It's the exact same thing. He's comparing hearing the word with seeing your natural face, but not doing it as forgetting your natural face. So you see the comparison there as well. All right, so just wanting to stick with that theme. Move my computer up, son. All right, so just kind of wanting to stick with that theme. We're seeing what the liberty is, you know, the law of liberty, being able to do as one pleases or having true freedom. So, Romans 7. We're going to go to Romans 7 now because I want to make this comparison as well, because this is also going to show it once more. And this is going to be a nice segue into some science. All right, so let me. Right, he starts this saying, those who know the law. Now, I don't want to necessarily go through the entire thing, so I'll kind of let you guys see it for yourselves. So basically, woman is married, you know, is bound by the law to her husband while he is living, but if her husband dies, she's released from that, right? Then if she is joined to another man, she shall be called an adulteress if he is living. But if her husband dies, she is free from that law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she is joined to another man. Therefore, my brethren, you were made to die to the law through the body of Christ, so that ye might be joined to another, to him who was raised from the dead. He's making a comparison between, you know, Jesus or the dead letter with the risen spirit or the Christ. Okay, so he's making a comparison there, so that you might be joined to another, to him who was raised. But you see, they're the exact same person, just like you are. You die and then resurrect. You're the exact same person, just like as was pointed out by a brother. If in their custom, if a man died, let's say a woman could, for example, well, if a man came back from death, he was, you know, he was free from all sin. Like, he was free from all of his sins because he was a new person. He had the penalty for death, the penalty for sin is death. So him dying, and, you know, if he was somehow brought back to life, which happens today many times, he was literally a new person. He was no longer bound by those sins. He could, you know, remarry his wife and she wouldn't be an adulteress. You know, he'd be different. He'd be free from all of that. Or he could not marry his wife again because he was a new man. He was free from all that. But he released from the law, having died to that by which you were bound. Okay, so let me see. Let's go here. As a matter of fact, you were made to die to the law through the body of Christ, so that you might be joined to another, to him who was raised from the dead, in order that we might bear fruit for God. Talking about bearing children. For while we were in the flesh, the sinful passions, the sinful passions which were aroused by the law. Remember what James said, where he says that no man is tempted by God? That's what he's talking about here. It's the exact same thing. No man is tempted by God. The law shows you what you are to be. That's what Jesus is. That's what Christ is. That's who we pretend to be when we go to church. Or think that's who we're being when we go to church. But so what he's saying is the exact same thing. When we see what we aren't supposed to do, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, when we see those things, but as a matter of fact, I'm sorry, he actually says that. So the sinful passions which were aroused by the law were at work in the members of our body to bear fruit for death. So basically the thou shalt not showed us the opposite of God's nature. It showed us what God was not like. And us wanting to be like God it made when we begin to try to act like God and not change our nature into God, the lust rises up because we're trying to put this fire out. We're trying to pretend like there is no fire actually. But if you pretend like there's no fire, it doesn't mean that it won't burn you. Everybody gets to that point where they got to shake their hand when they've been burnt. And you just have to acknowledge that thing. That's what happens. That's when that lust rises up. That's what he's saying. He says, we're at work in the members of our body to bear fruit. Remember that. Members of our body. This is going to play such a vital role in what I'm going to be talking about later on. All right, because you'll see. I mean, this is the key to everything. It really is. I couldn't believe that Paul was saying this. We're at work in the members of our body to bear fruit for death, but now we have been released from the law, having died to that by which we were bound. Died to that, so that we serve in newness of the Spirit and not in the oldness of the letter. The two contrasts, right? We see it again, the Spirit and the letter. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? May it never be. Right? So he's not saying that the law is evil, which is what people will say Paul was confused, but he's not confused. He's making a comparison between believing in the God outside of yourself or believing in the God inside of yourself. Believing that your spirit, your very own spirit is God, or believing that you have to worship a deity outside of yourself. Or, do you observe the commandments of the book but not become the commandments of the book, what they actually were, because they were a parable, So do you understand the symbolisms, or are you stuck on the surface level of the story, believing the history of it, as opposed to getting the part that actually transforms you, the part that removes the veil from Moses' face so that you can see, oh, man is God. Oh, love God with all my heart, with all my mind, and with all my strength. And my neighbor as God. That would change everything. And just like Jesus said, on this hangs Moses and the prophets. So, what shall we say then? Is the law sin? No. I would not have it come to know sin except through the law. Just like we would not have known that there was a desire within us for such and such, if not for temptation. For I would not have known about coveting if the law had not said, you shall not covet. But sin, now remember this, Paul also says that the Gentiles who've never read the law, says when they do what it says in the law, are they not a law unto themselves, proving that the law is in our nature. That's what he's saying as well. When we do what is against our own nature to do, when we do what we don't want to do by nature, that's the law. That's the law. Isn't that proven to us that there is a law? But sin take an opportunity through that commandment, and we only compromise on those things that we think that we cannot defeat. We say, well, if I can't beat it, then I might as well revel in it. And that's when it becomes no law. That's when you have no remorse for doing those things. Right? But that can also happen when you have a revelation about those things. When, someone who maybe, just a small example, someone who may think that they can't wear certain things, for example, maybe pants or a hat, say that they get a revelation that that's not true. And now they're set free from that thing. So they don't do it anymore, as opposed to it being the opposite, where a revelation shows you what you can't do anymore, in a sense. But sin, taking opportunity through the commandment, produced in me coveting of every kind. For apart from the law, sin is dead, right? When you don't have any conviction, pretty much, or when there's nothing, when there's no mark, that's what he's saying. When there's no image of what you are to be, sin is dead. That's one of the I don't want to say that's the dangers, because Christ has always been there. Christ has been there since before Christianity. A lot of people don't know that, but even the word Christ referring to people has been there before Christianity and before Judaism. So Christ has always been there. We need the mark as far as what's achievable For example, let's just say, all right, here we go. This is a perfect example. Because of one man, we all run faster, right? Because at one point in time, it was impossible to run as fast as man runs now, or so we thought. But when man ran that fast, it became possible for everyone. We all evolved. Then a man swam faster than man has ever swam. And then we realized that we can swim faster than that, right? So once again, we evolve. So, at one point in time, what else could we do? People jump higher now. Technically, we can live longer. We can do certain surgeries, all that kind of stuff. Like things that were impossible at one point in time are now possible. The 4-minute mile was impossible at one point in time. Now it's possible. Now people with less skill and training than the man who did it the first time can do it. So it's crazy, right? I mean, but that's what happens. New marks, when new goals are set, man accomplishes them. That's why nothing is impossible. We just think that it is. We haven't set our goals high enough. So, but then at the same time, we also have to crawl there, But certain events do cause us to jump forward. But just think about that, man. It's crazy. But yeah. Wow. You shall not covet, but sin take an opportunity. But that's what it means. It's the exact same thing. And it says, and I died, and this commandment, which was to result in life, proved to result in death in me. So just like, kind of like the manna, it's that book. It's supposed to be life. You search the scriptures, for in them you think you find life, but it is they that speak of me, right? The thing that was supposed to bring you life, brought you death, because it shows the contrast of the two natures, even if you don't see that. Which was result in life, proven result for death me. For sin, taking an opportunity through the commandment, deceived me, and through it killed me. So then the law is holy, and the commandment is holy, and righteous, and good. Therefore did that which is good become a cause of death for me? May it never be. Rather, it was sin, misunderstanding of what it is, in order that it might be shown to be sin by affecting my death through that which is good, so that through the commandment sin would become utterly sinful. Now let's get into these two conflicting natures, because this is going to show this is going to be this is like, well, this is going to show, in my opinion, this is going to show the solution. It's a contrast that Paul was making that goes right hand in hand with not knowing how you work. All right, and then we're going to have another example even after this. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am flesh, sold into bondage to sin. What I am doing, I do not understand. For I am not practicing what I like to do. They say it perfectly here. But I am doing the very thing I hate. But if I do the very thing I do not want to do, I agree the law, confessing the law, is good. Right? So he's basically saying that he agrees that the law is good because it's the nature that he wants to be. That's, just like, hypocrisy. I was saying earlier, yeah, hypocrisy, bad, boo. But hypocrisy is like people trying to be their better selves. They just don't know how to stay that. So now no longer am I the one doing it, but sin which dwells in me, misunderstanding. For I know that instead of gnosis, instead of understanding, instead of knowledge, knowing, he has not knowing in him. And that causes him to do what he doesn't want to do, even though he doesn't want to do it and he doesn't understand it. For I know that nothing good dwells in me, nothing functional, that is my flesh. For the willing is present in me. You want to, but the doing of the good is not. Being a hearer and not a doer. For the good that I want, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not want. But if I am doing the very thing I do not want, I am no longer the one doing it, but sin which dwells in me. The misunderstanding that dwells in him, the not knowing of himself. Let's go to the top here. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you that are the living sons of the Father, or the sons of the living Father. But if you would not know yourselves, you would dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. That's exactly what Paul's saying here. That is the poverty, not knowing yourself. Not knowing causes you to go through this. For the good that I want, I do not do, but I practice the very evil that I do not want to. But if I am doing the very thing that I do not want to, I am no longer the one doing it, but sin which dwells in me. That's the poverty, because you don't know yourself. You're unknown. I find then the principle that evil is present in me. Evil, right? It is not good for man to be alone. But man wasn't alone because his companion was brought from out of him. It was in him. So man's companion was in him. It is not good for man to be alone, but man wasn't alone. That means it's not good for man to not understand that he is not alone. That is evil. Not good is evil. Evil is present in me. Who caused Adam to, quote unquote, eat from the tree? Right? Eve. Thing in him. He had nothing to reflect himself against. Nothing to compare himself to. The one who wants to do good. For I joyfully concur with the law of God in the inner man, but I see a different law in the members of my body. Right? The body, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin, which is in my members. Wretched man that I am. Be wretched. Who will set me free from the body of this death? Who will set me free from the body? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, on the one hand, I myself with my mind am serving the law of God, but on the other, with my flesh, the law of sin. Now, he goes on in chapter 8 to talk more about this, how the law of Jesus Christ sets him free. All right. Now, we're going to talk about that in a science way. All right. So, I'll talk about that in a science way. So, this is very, very crazy because just recently, something that I've come across has, in my opinion, shed a lot of light on the mind, body, soul kind of connection thing. And it's made everything in my opinion, it's made everything a lot clearer. I can't say makes perfect sense because I'm pretty sure, in a little while that picture will become even clearer. I started studying the conscious mind and the subconscious mind a long time ago. That was kind of like what I would say the beginning of the whole spirit science thing. Before that I was in the Word really, really heavy. So I got a lot of that foundation in that. And then I started learning about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind just because it helps in life, right? So that was kind of like the practical application of what you might learn through the Word, right? Or how to use this practically, how to master yourself, how to take captivity captive. So I got into that, and now I can clearly see, well, basically, let me put it like this: the subconscious mind is the body, okay? Because think about this, we look at the mind is not the brain, okay? The mind is the controller of the brain. All right. I'm going to say this now, and then I'm going to pick back up on it later. But when people die, right, and come back to life, and they report having near-death experiences, when they've survived their death, when they remember what happened when they died, when they come out of themselves and they look at themselves, they see, they hear, they feel, they're conscious. Though they're outside of their body and their body is dead, their brain has no activity, what seems like was governed by the brain is still continuing. And that's when they realize that, oh my God, I'm not my body. That's when they have a awakening. But the point of that is the part that you see now, what you think is coming through your eyes, your consciousness, your awareness is what continues after you die. It's not brain based. It controls the brain. The consciousness and the brain together make up the mind. That is an entity together. That's kind of like, it's almost like saying that you outside of a car, but when you get in the car, that's the brain, or that's the mind, but the car is the brain. You are the consciousness. When you get in the car, that's the mind. But that's, and that's the soul mixed with the body. That's when the soul and the body are in connection. It's that thing, like that's the entire being in and of itself, pretty much. That's the soul. The consciousness and the body make up the soul, pretty much. But there's another level outside of that, being spirit. And it's crazy because, well, I can't even get into all that, but I almost lost track again. But the conscious mind is basically the part that you make decision with. The subconscious mind is the part that has been controlling your breathing for the last couple of minutes and you haven't been paying attention. It's the part that's digesting the food that you ate today, or the water that you may have drank. It's rebuilding any cuts that you may have in your body right now. It's a brain in and of itself. But it's a brain that didn't have to be taught. That's a mind. That's an information that just is. It's a blueprint that just is written somewhere, right? So that is your subconscious mind. That mind is a mind of its own. It's a very, very, very vast ocean of mind. Like, imagine being in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where all you see around you is water, and it looks like that's all that exists in the world. That's the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the you floating in that. But the beauty of it is the conscious mind controls that ocean. It is the Jesus walking on the water, controlling the storm. Though the subconscious mind seems so large and intimidating, it is actually your servant. That's why it's the subconscious mind. It's subservient. It's under you. But it's pretty much unlimited. The potential of it is ridiculous. It processes like 4 billion or 400 billion? It's something like that, bits of information, I think, per second. We're only aware of 2,000 of that. But remember, let me just give you an example. Your subconscious mind pretty much knows what time it is right now. It could tell you what time it was if you really knew how to tap into it. It knows your temperature. It's feeling the temperature outside and regulating your temperature inside. What else is it doing right now? It's feeling your socks on your feet, or your shoes, or your pants, or your shirt, or what you're sitting on. It's smelling every fragrance in the room, even though you may have become numb to it because it's determined that it's not important enough to you, so it's blocking it out. Because you have to remember, only process 2,000 bits of data, and that's what you're focusing on. That 2,000 goes to what you're focusing on right now. So you might not feel an ant crawling on you at first, right? But eventually, when it tickles enough of your hair, your subconscious mind lets you be aware of it, though you felt it already. Just like sometimes you can hurt yourself or cut yourself and not feel pain until you see it, because it wasn't important until you focused on it. Your subconscious mind is in control of all that, and it can be programmed. It's like a floppy disk. We don't understand how so much information can go on a hard drive. It's just this small. We're used to putting things in houses and boxes and things that are three-dimensional. We're not used to putting information on something, and information being intangible but tangible at the same time. Well, that's how the subconscious mind is. It's like the biggest floppy drive you'll ever see. The amount of information that can go into it is like all the Wall Street journals that have ever been printed and more from this day. The subconscious mind never forgets. It literally has recorded every single second since you've come into existence. And if you knew how to tap into it, you could remember everything. It drives the car for you when you're not paying attention. When you're talking to your friend, or when you thinking about something else and daydreaming, it drives the car for you. It played the drums for me when I was daydreaming at church sometimes. You know, it's the thing that boxers use so that they do the same actions over and over and over again. So when they get in the ring, they don't have to think. The body does it for them. That's the subconscious mind. It's a computer. It's a biological computer. We just don't know that. So it becomes this deep ocean that drowns us. But really, we're supposed to be walking on it, having dominion over it. You know? But you have to do that consciously, and you have to know how to do that. We've already become who we are unconsciously, and now our body rules us. This vast ocean rules us. That's what Paul's talking about, the law in the mind and the law. Where is it at? That's what he's talking about here when he says that it is, you know, principles in me, the law of the inner man, the law of my mind, make me a prisoner, right? Make me a prisoner of the law of the sin which is in my members. He's talking about the contrast here. This law that governs, this is the sympathetic system. That's the body. That's the that's the how can I explain it? That's the you that has to die. This is the beast. This is the beast that has to be tamed. This is the opposite of a garden. This is a wild field that needs to be, you know, broken down and weeded and all that kind of stuff with new seeds sown into it. The seeds that you want to grow there as opposed to the ones that just grew, because this is what the wind blew in. You know, that's what that is. The conscious mind is the one that willingly plants here. Once you know how to use it, once you know how to conquer this thing. Oh, man. And we're going to get into that. You know, I mean, we've pretty much already started talking about it. It's just an awakening of who you are. And Paul talks about this too, as you've seen it, and we're going to get in even deeper into this. But this is where your habits lie. This is the reason why smokers smoke cigarettes even after they've quit after 3 days, because nicotine remains in your system for 3 days. You know, that's what they tell you at rehab. So that's real. As far as I know, that's real. So, you know, nicotine stays in your system for 3 days. After that, it's out of your system. After that, it's all habitual. The fixation with smoking, bringing the cigarette to your mouth, inhaling, you know, the act of smoking, doing something when there's nothing to do. Your body takes over. Then it becomes addicted to doing that thing, and when you stop, it doesn't know how to cope. And then it does this thing to you that makes you have to do it. It sends feelings to you. It hits you with chemicals. It speaks to you. It's a mind in and of itself. See, this is how it works. And somebody put this perfectly, literally, I think it was yesterday. So I'm able to, you know, take the way that they said it and say it back to you. But I'm not sure what that is out there, but okay, so basically what happens is okay, so this is how it goes. Emotions, right? Emotions are literally a chemical in the body, and they come from thoughts. Your thoughts cause you to have emotions. Your thoughts come from the interpretation of outside stimulus or inner stimulus when you know how to do it. So this is how it goes, basically. There's so much more to the subconscious mind. I know all those who love the subconscious mind stuff, you know, I'm not going to touch on that right now. There's so much more to it, I know. But basically what happens is, what's in your subconscious mind, your memories of experiences and all the feelings that you had, all the reactions to the experiences that you had are stored in a database that sum up who you are. All right, that is your self-image, who you believe you are based on your beliefs, that is based off your experiences that have been collected in this. You can almost look at it as like this clear gelatin of you, right? All your experiences are stuck to it. So you run it past that, you interpret life, what happens to you through that, and then you have an emotional response. That emotional response is due to your interpretation. But that emotional response causes a chemical. That chemical then runs through your system for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. That basically saturates your cells. Your cells have these things on them that are receptors. They receive something from these emotional chemicals. All right. When you do it enough times, they become kind of immune to it. So they desire more. And it's kind of like, because it's a drug, it's a chemical, it's a drug to them. So they desire more. Then they become a little number, and then they want more. So basically, that's usually when your behavior spirals further and further and further out of control, and then you get to the point where you no longer want to be that person, right? Or when you no longer want to do that thing that your habits you have habitually. This is when you become conscious. Now you're aware. You're no longer doing things. You're no longer letting your body lead you anymore, because that's what happens. Your body said, I like this feeling of hate. Give me more anger, more anger, more anger, more anger. And then you explode, and then it's like, I just did something I didn't want to be. I just did something I didn't want to do, and I was something I don't want to be, and now you want to consciously be something different. But guess what? Your body is addicted to that drug, whether it be joy, whether it be depression, whether it be anger, whether it be lust or sexual addiction, whether it be a drug, because drugs, what they do is release the same chemical in the brain that food and sex do. So it's the exact same thing. Drugs, food, and sex, whether it be any of those types of things, anything that you're addicted to, smoking cigarettes, the game, PlayStation, betting, all those kinds of things, those things that have somehow created some emotional addiction to you, for you. And when you try to stop doing it, then your body craves it. And when you aren't giving it to it, your body will start to talk to you. Because at first you spoke to your body. When you interpreted life and had that emotion, you dictated to your body. You said, this is how I feel about this situation, body, and this is how I want to react to it every time it comes up. That's what your emotions say. Your emotions are literally like, it's almost like taking a screenshot of life and then writing a note at the bottom of it and then saving it on your computer. Okay, so let's say laid off from work, note, get depressed every time this happens. Or when similar situations or similar stimulus comes. That's pretty much what you're saying. And then save, and then it enters into your subconscious mind through your emotions. So that's what your body is like, yo, this is who we are now. Give us more of this. But because at first you gave it to your body. You programmed it through your emotions. Now you're trying to deprive it of that chemical. And it's like, whoa. First of all, because it's the subconscious mind, it's your servant. It's like, whoa. First of all, I'm trying to do you a favor. I'm trying to make sure we stay consistent here. Right? And you're like, I don't want to be that anymore. But you don't know how to communicate that to your subconscious mind because you're talking to it. You're telling it what you're not, and it doesn't understand not. Your subconscious mind does not understand not. Your conscious mind understands what not is, and then you interpret it as what not should be. But your subconscious mind doesn't understand not. So don't smoke. All it hears is smoke. Smoke. It doesn't hear the negative part. It hears the point. It hears the I want to say the noun, but I want to say the subject of the sentence or the object of the sentence. It hears the object. It hears the thing. So don't go means go, because you're focusing on go. That's like if you're hanging off on a cliff, you should not think, I don't want to fall, I don't want to fall, I don't want to fall. Because what are you focusing on? Falling. You should be like, light. I don't know, think of something different. But that's what I mean, like, this, you have to know how to communicate to the subconscious mind, and you have to understand how the subconscious mind communicates back to you so that you can hear it when it's talking, and so that it can hear you when you're talking, so that you can program it. All right, you can feel emotions at any time you want. For example, remember the last time somebody made you upset. if you relive that situation, you'll start to feel the chemicals. If you start to, or think about this, somebody that you may be upset with now that you want to argue with, just imagine, or somebody that you want to get something off your chest with, imagine talking to them and getting it off your chest, and you will start to get upset as if you're actually having a conversation. And because your subconscious mind doesn't know, it can't tell that that's not reality, because all it receives is the way you receive and the way you give it information. That's all. You know, everything that we think we're experiencing is literally only an electronic impulse. That's all it is. It's an electronic signal. It's an interpretation of electronic signals. That's it. So we've never really heard, seen, smelt, taste, none of that stuff. Our subconscious mind hasn't either. It's just received those signals or the interpretation of those signals. We can do that in our mind. We can stimulate the exact same senses. That's what monkey see, monkey do means. When they put one, it's called mirror neurons. They put one monkey, two monkeys beside each other. They put the things on their heads, whatever those things are called, that allow them to, see the brain. And when one monkey looked at the other monkey raise his arm, though the monkey that was looking did not do it, it still fired in his brain as if he did it. Monkey see, monkey do. It's learned behavior. Mirror neurons. The reason that babies smile at you when you look over them and smile at them, because they've never seen a smile before. They're just mimicking you. That's why they walk, because they want to be like you. That's why they want to use a spoon. That's why they want to use a big cup. They just want to be like you. That's why they put on your shoes. They just want to be like you. That's mirror neurons. We're just glue like that. It sticks to us. That's all it is in the subconscious mind. That's how you train it. It's the exact same thing. You can use it, and you can use it on purpose. So that's the conscious and subconscious mind. This is the mind of the body. It's a mind of its own if you allow it to be. But it's supposed to be a database. It's supposed to be where you store your commands. It's supposed to be where the law abides. But if it's, ruling you, then you can't abide by the law. That's the carnal mind. That's the carnal mind. That's the mind of the body that Paul was talking about when he says that the carnal mind can't be subject to God's law. But it can. What he's saying is that you can never be man, or you can never be body and rule, or never be body and be subject to God's law. But if you're spirit, if you're mind, then you can be. You have to be able to rule that body. Understand how habits are formed and how to make habits. Understand how to, for lack of better words, conjure up emotion so that you can speak to your subconscious mind. Because that's how you speak to it. That's why most people who try affirmations, it never works for them, because they don't know how to drum up emotion. They don't know how to make it real. And this is scripture. As a matter of fact, let's just talk about that now. Use this as a segue. Okay. Here we go. If you believe, you shall receive whatever you ask in prayer. This, I don't think that's the one I was talking about, though. But he's talking about faith. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. In prayer. I just know bits and pieces. It's crazy. Therefore I tell you whatever you ask in prayer. Okay, there we go. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Believe that you have received. No, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So received it is past tense. Believe that you've already received it, and it will be yours. Belief is what belief happens here. It starts here in thoughts, right? But belief is here. Belief is when something becomes a law in your body. Not held here. For example, if somebody really believes in Jesus, they would die for it, right? When the gun's to their head, they really know what they believe. When it comes down to what they want to do as opposed to what God wants to do, then they really show their belief, right? When it comes down to life, when it comes down to nobody's looking, when true integrity is there, you see people's true beliefs, okay? When somebody pulls out a gun on somebody and they start running behind other people to dodge the bullets, you see their true beliefs, okay? Now, I mean, that may be not acceptable to some people, but that's true. And because that's who you are and that's true, there's nothing wrong with that. It needs to be exposed so that you can know what to do with that. But think about this. That's where your beliefs are. So you need to know how to believe, how to get this part to believe it so that it can, because believe me, you, this is the part that prays for you all day. This is your intercessor. And it's asking for whatever you ask for it to ask for all day. Because this thing is at a vibration, and as a vibration, it's literally sending out a signal that's receiving towards you. All right, we'll talk about that at a different time. But, well, actually, no, emotions, yeah, emotions, you know how people say vibes? Emotions are literally, they literally cause a vibrational state. That's why anger has a different feeling than love, which has a different feeling than depression, which has a different feeling than guilt and fear, or joy, or just regular happiness, or being content. They all have different feelings. They all have different vibrations, just like musical notes. Just like music gives different feelings. Some music makes you want to fight. Some music makes you want to make love. Some music makes you just want to dance, while other music has you want to chill. Other music is very good for traveling. All different vibrations. It's sound. Everything is sound. Sound is motion. But everything is sound, pretty much. That's why music has such an influence on everything, because everything is really in motion. It's in a constant state of vibration, and that is sound. That's why it's called the universe. You know, one verse. Everything is together in a verse. Everything is just one part of the scale. So your emotions have a lot to do with that, and your emotional state, what you are consistently, gives out a vibration. Okay, so you want to be aware of that. That's why this needs to be on the right vibe, because this is interceding for you all day. So let's look at what he said. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Believe that you have received it. Most people think they know what belief is, but they don't. They look at belief as really being hope, you know, wishful thinking. Belief is when you are convinced. When for example, this is a really, really, really good example of belief. Have you ever gone down or up some stairs in the dark, and you know you don't count your steps? Well, some of you probably do, but maybe you didn't count your steps while you're going up, and you're not sure if it's the last one or not. So you stick your foot out there and you feel around and you say, "Oh, okay, that was the last one. I can walk regular now." That's not belief, right? That's hope. When you go down the steps and you step out expecting there to be another step and you almost step through your floor, that's belief, right? You put your body into it, it believes. You know what I mean? That's the difference. Most people think they believe, but they don't. Because when it comes down to it, when they're not thinking, you know, when there's no one looking, when there's nothing but integrity on the line, that's when their beliefs come out. That's when they either feel for that step or they take that step. That's the difference. And if you're taking that step, feeling for that step in your mind, that's still not belief. Okay, so you have to know how to believe. When you look at the word faith, it's the word conviction. Conviction is what happens in court when there's enough evidence to prove somebody innocent or guilty. You know, that's, you know, or well, let's say conviction is when they're proving guilty, because you know that's the examples I mostly see, but it's when you come to a conclusion, pretty much when you reach a verdict. So it's like, because of evidence, I know this thing. That's belief. When there is no evidence, it's pretty much impossible to come to a conclusion like that. That's why Gnostics were so big into self-experience, to have an experience each individual, so that you can receive real belief, so that you can have actual faith. Now, if you know how to make yourself believe, because you believe the things you believe now because you made yourself believe them, no one else can believe for you, and no one can make you believe. They can only present information to you, and you can take that information and receive it and believe it or not. It's still up to you. Now, unfortunately, through repetition, the subconscious mind is overcome through repetition, which is unfortunate, which is why in some cases your environment does make you. That's why you have to be aware of the outside stimuluses that you receive. But so think about it that way too. You know, it works that way as well. But it is your decision. Nobody can create your mind. You have to create your mind. All right. So belief, how does that work? How did you create the belief that you currently have? That is something that we will have to learn. We'll have to get into that, right? Because you want to know. Because Jesus is saying that this is a principle. You have to believe that you received it in order for it to be yours, because that's how things manifest. You literally are pulling everything into your life through your belief. That's why I said it's important to have this thing programmed to the frequency that you want it to be on, because it's interceding for you all day. Through your beliefs, that signal is receiving all day.
A vast virus database has been updated.
And my computer talks to me. So, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. That is the principle of the subconscious mind. If you can program the subconscious mind, you'll have the life that you want to have, because this thing is based off of picture and feeling. All right, so let's, as a matter of fact, I want to get into, I'll close that now. I can close this too. And 1 Corinthians, I want to get into that next. So okay, and I can close this too, right? Being ourselves, do we need, yeah, I can close this too. Alright, so we're going to talk about the subconscious mind now. We're going to talk about how it's pretty much how it's programmed. And this is cool because I get to do a little experiment with you guys that I've always wanted to do, which, you know, I've participated in myself, and most of you will probably know this, but let's see. Okay, we're just going to go into our imagination, all right? Because this is going to be one of the most amazing tools that you'll ever discover that you had, that you never thought that you had. And I'm going to explain this in a second, all right? Because this is like one of the favorite things, and I don't practice this enough at all, but this is going to make me have to. Okay, so in a second we'll start the experiment, but I want you to think about your imagination for a second. All right, it is literally a world in and of its own. It's infinite. When you think of your imagination, it's vast, infinite darkness, just like space. But at any given time, you can fill it with light when you want to. It's eternity, and it has no time. When you're in your imagination, or daydreaming, or dreaming, which are all synonymous, right? When you're in either one of those states, there is no time. It can feel like forever in a second. It's literally like the kingdom. It is a different realm. It's personal, but it's just the same for everyone. For example, let me just say this. Close your eyes, if you will, and I want you to imagine a yellow house. Now, everyone who is thinking of this yellow house, wait, as a matter of fact, now I want you to put a porch on this yellow house. Any porch. Well, make a porch made of brown wood on this yellow house. Do the best you can. It doesn't matter how good it looks. Doesn't matter how realistic it looks. Doesn't matter. Now I want you to give this house 2 windows on the front. And I want you to give it a red door on the front. Okay, and I want you to give it a chimney. with some smoke coming out. Okay, and just look at the house for a second. Look at it for a second. Look at it for a little bit longer, and done. Now this is what I want to point out. We all were looking at the exact same house. You know how I know? Because it's the house that I asked you to look at. You were setting your mind to look at the house that I was talking about. And everyone else that's doing that is also doing the exact same thing. But your house doesn't look like my house. But it's the same house. That's the kingdom. The kingdom is within you. It's yours. It's only in you. That's why Jesus said, you know, in the Gospel of Thomas, he says, if people say it's in the air, then the birds precede you. If they say it's in the water, then the fish precede you. That's why it's within you. So no one precedes you. You're the first man to go in. You're the only one that can go into this holy of holies to see the face of God. You're the only one. That's the beauty of it. Though we can all have the exact same experience in our mind, because we do it anyway. Remember, everything that we see is an electronic signal in our mind. So though you and I can be looking at the exact same thing on the screen right now, our interpretations are different. Right? It's the same thing. It all happens inside of us. The entire world that we experience out there is really in here. It's an electronic signal. That's what Jesus means. The kingdom is inside of you. If you can control that, you can control your perception. If you can control your perception, you control what you see in life and your interpretation. You control your interpretation, you control the body. When you control the body, you control what you begin then to receive that you need to interpret. It's a cycle. But most people do it this way. I don't know why I do what I do, so this causes me to receive this and feel this way. It goes into this, which then makes me start to think based off my emotions. For example, when you're not mad, you don't have mad thoughts. When somebody pisses you off, you start to have different thoughts soon after that. Those thoughts will then escalate your emotion, which will then cause you to think even more thoughts, which will then escalate your emotion. See, when you receive the outside stimulus that pissed you off, you could have told your body, you know, this upsets me, but I refuse to let it get me upset. Or this is a behavior that I don't receive because it offends me. But it only offends me because of my pride. So it's not even worth it. So now you just programmed your body to not respond. But if you fly off the handle, let the emotion, let that flood of emotions go into your body and tell your body, this is how I want to respond every time. Your body's going to say, okay. And then it's going to begin to speak to you from that emotion. It's going to say, yeah, you're right. They did do you wrong. They did do this, yada, yada, yada. They did do this. They did do that. They did do this. As opposed to when you think from the conscious mind, as opposed to letting the body think for you, you can think like Joseph, whose brothers, you know, threw him into a pit. Well, they wanted to kill him, threw him into a pit, sold him. He was then lied on and then given to another prison, who was then forgotten by the guy he helped out and then later remembered, so that he can save his family and a nation. Because if Joseph's brothers wouldn't have betrayed him, the family of Israel would have died of famine. Joseph going to Israel saved them. So them betraying him saved them. So Joseph's dream of ruling over them had to come to pass through those incidents. If Joseph would have never and when they came to him, he said, don't be sad. You didn't do this to me. God did it. So his perspective was different. His interpretation of that outside stimulus, because he was right to accuse them. He was right to accuse them. You know, they did him wrong. That is for sure. They did him wrong. But because of his perception, he was able to see it differently. He was able to see the same reality as everyone else a different way, as if it was a different situation. And that's what Paul says that's what Paul means when he says, eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has the mind conceived or imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. Because eye has never seen, ear has never heard. That's the illusion. We think that we see and hear. We only perceive a signal. But when you have the mind of God, you have what he has prepared for those who love him. Then you see through his eyes the same situations that everyone else sees. Everyone else can look at Joseph's situation and say, man, I can't believe you didn't just let your brothers die. I can't believe you didn't expose them to your father. I can't believe you didn't at least kill the ones that wanted to plot against you and save your dad. But he's like, no, I see now that this is the dream that God gave me prior to them betraying me. He was showing me then that this, I can interpret everyone else's dream, but I didn't see how mine was going to come to pass. And when these things happen, I might not have understood in between that these were the stepping stones to get me where I'm going. But now that I'm here, I can see from God's angle. I have hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20, right? Now I have hindsight. So I'm looking back like God. I'm looking back like, okay, I can see exactly why this happened. That's the mind that God wants to prepare for those who love him. Or he has already prepared. That state already exists. That state is available in every situation. It's the state of love, maturity. That state is always available. It's already prepared for those who love him. Because remember, loving him is loving yourself. Because he's in you. He is you. You are him in the mirror. So as a matter of fact, let's move into that situation. I mean, there's a lot of talking about this. Imagination times vividness. Oh, we did do one experiment, right? But I wanted to get into some more stuff with imagination. Let's see. All right, okay, let's do one more imagination exercise. I'm going to try to, what I want to do is show you how outside stimulus I put like this. Let me tell you what happens when you fall asleep. And many of you will relate to this. I'm going to show you this, and this is going to be like better than even me doing the imagination thing, because you'll see the power of it, your attention and your awareness. All right, so when you fall asleep at night, and some of you may have woke up paralyzed, right? Not being able to move, and they call that the witch is riding your back. And you're probably not, some of you won't believe me, because I know with the first time that happened to me, and when I asked people what it was, remember I asked people what it was, and they told me it was a demon or a witch, there was nothing else anybody could tell me. Because I wasn't trying to take no chance in thinking that it wasn't a demon if it was, right? So, but come to find out, I'm not the only person that's gone through this. There's many people that's gone through it, and it has actually been documented. This happens every single night when we fall asleep, unless you sleepwalk, because night paralysis is what keeps you from acting out your dreams bodily. So usually in kids, going through puberty, when they have a chemical imbalance, then that's usually off a little bit. So, when they start their puberty cycle, which I started at 9 years old, and yes, and that I do remember sleepwalking around that time. So, okay, I can definitely see that now that I think back to that. So, that's what night paralysis is. It happens every night. It's not the keep you from rolling over, but it keeps you from running. It keeps you from jumping. It keeps you from punching and all those kind of things, right? But you can wake yourself up out of night paralysis and then be in action as well. Okay, so that's what night paralysis is. Every night we go to sleep, our body gets completely numb as if we're dead, and we can't move. It becomes paralyzed. If you ever woken up in that state, you'll know you can't move your arms, your legs. You can try to scream, but nothing's coming out and all that kind of stuff, right? Two things are happening there. One, that's night paralysis, and two, your spirit or subtle body or spirit body, whatever, literally disconnects from your physical body. It's like similar to death. That's why sleep is the cousin of death or whatever. So as you do this every night, what happens is when you're falling asleep, the feeling of falling asleep is literally the act of turning your attention inward. It's the act of turning off your outward senses and turning on your inward senses. Okay, it's almost like there can't be any light. I mean, there can't be any darkness when the light is on. When you hit the switch and the light comes on, darkness is gone. But when you hit the switch and light is gone, the darkness comes right back. It's the exact same thing. It's like your senses are in this world, but then when you hit that, when you get that feeling almost as if you're falling or you're sinking, that's literally your senses going inward. And that's when you that's when you can hear in your dreams what you experience in dreams, and when you can feel and touch and taste what's in your dreams. And that's when your dreams become real, because your senses go to a different level of consciousness. Not that they disappear, but it shows you that your senses aren't as real as you think they are. Because either way, no matter where your senses are used, electronic signals are still being interpreted by some form of mind, so that you can experience. Just like somebody out of their body and a near-death experience can still see, hear, smell, all that kind of stuff. Though they don't have a body for senses, they still have senses. They can still interpret data. Because smell is a vibration. It's a sound. It's just information. Light is a vibration. It's just something vibrating at a speed that makes it light. For example, you can take a metal pipe and it can be silver, but you can light it up and melt it, and as you heat it up and it vibrates faster and faster, it'll start to glow. It'll make its own light the faster it is. That's you too. You can do the exact same thing if you are at a higher vibration. That's why when you're in things that are low vibe, it's a more dark atmosphere. But when you're in things that are more glorious, more godlike, it's always bright and luminescent and joyous and things like that. You can see it. You know, you can go from that's you. The dark you is the light you. It's the exact same thing. Just like hot and cold on a thermometer, there is no real beginning or end to hot and cold. To one person, 75 is hot, to another 60 is. So it's no real beginning. It's all through interpretation. But guess what? One thing is for sure, hot and cold are measured by the exact same thing, just like you. Good and evil are measured by you. They're two polar opposites of you. So it's you, you know. Now, so did I get into that thing that I was actually going to? This was better than imagination, I was saying. I wonder if I actually got into it. I would have to stop and go back and see. See, that's what happens when I get on tangents. Let me see. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I said that it was better than imagination. Oh, man. Okay, I'm pretty sure it'll come up later. So let's go ahead and get into this. The excellent way. The excellent way. Okay, yeah, we were talking about that when your senses change. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying there. And that and listen, when that happens, when our bodies go paralyzed and all that kind of stuff, that's literally our spirits being able to detach from our body, our senses turning inward. Alright, so think about that, because you're gonna need to remember that for when we get into the thing that we're actually getting ready to go into next. Okay, so an hour and 3 minutes. Alright, so I'm going to stop this here and just pick up in another video at this part, or I'm going to pause it and then pick back up at the next part.